What are your corporate values? Are they more than just a slogan? Safety first. A diamond is forever. Be all that you can be. Quality is job one. Just do it. Semper Fi. These are all slogans, and some mean more than others. Some are just marketing gimmicks, and some actually have very significant meaning to men and women who are about to put their lives on the line. And the same is true for our corporate values. They need to be more than just cute little slogans that we use for marketing our companies and our businesses. They need to be the things that drive our decisions and our actions every day in every situation. My name's Todd Reimer. I'm the author of More Than a Hammer, Leadership Tools for the Trades, Part 1 and Part 2, but I'm also the founder of Boots on the Ground Coaching. We're an organization that trains and coaches men and women who lead in the trades. When I say that our values need to drive our decisions and our actions, here's what I mean. 10 years ago, I had a construction company, and I had two crews that did a lot of residential re-roofing. One day, I got a call from a customer. It was a customer where I knew my guys should have been on that roof that morning. And here's what he told me. He said, "Todd, your guys are on site." And so in my head, I'm going, okay, thank goodness that they're there. I knew they should be, but I was hoping something hadn't gone wrong, no accidents or anything. And he said, "Todd, they're working already," but he said, there's no swearing. Nobody's smoking on site. Like, nobody's smoking in my yard. They're polite to my wife and my children. Like, I just wanted to let you know that your guys are really good. But what he told me about my employees wasn't a surprise. I knew who I had working for me, and I also knew the values that drove our decisions and the guidelines that we'd put in place. Because one of the rules was this. It was very simple. There's no cursing on site. When we're on somebody else's yard, there's no cursing and no smoking in somebody else's yard. Why? Why did we have those rules, and why did everybody know that that was the expectation? Because they were based on one of our values. One of our values was respect. Respect each other, respect our suppliers, our sub-trades, and respect our customers. Respect was a part of who we were and how we functioned. So respect drove our decisions and our actions. It was one of the things that drove it, because we had several other values as well. The decision was easy because it was driven by our values. What drives your decisions and your actions in your organization if it's not your values? Is it profit? Is it pragmatism? Is it the economy? Is it ego? That's the risk we take if we don't have strong corporate values. Other people's egos, other people's desires, other people's greed can drive our companies and our decisions and the actions that our employees are going to take. We need strong corporate values. I'm standing in front of my shed, and you'll notice it looks a little bit ragged this morning. Well, yesterday, when I got home from work, there was a tornado warning. We didn't end up getting a tornado, but we had a very, very strong wind come through, and it tore my shed to shreds. It completely shredded the fabric. So we went for a walk after that, and what we found was somebody's trampoline was stuck in a tree sideways and bent and twisted. The wind had lifted it out of somebody's yard and set it down in these trees and mangled it. Why did that happen? Because it wasn't anchored to anything. The trampoline was just sitting there loose. As long as the weather was nice, there was no problem really. But when the strong winds came, it took that trampoline and it lifted it and threw it into some trees. That's what our values do. They anchor us. Values anchor any company and anchor the men and women who work with us. You see, when we have strong corporate values and everybody knows what they are, and those are what drive our decisions and our actions, well, the decisions become easier. The actions are predetermined. We already know what to expect. Our employees know how we're going to respond during the challenges. Our employees know how we're going to respond when things get tough. When all of a sudden we've bid on a job or we've agreed to do something and they know we're going to lose money because maybe we've missed something. They know that we're not going to cut corners to save money. They know we're going to act, if our value is honesty and integrity, they know that we're going to act in accordance with that. We're anchored. How do we choose our values? This is challenging because we can't have 50 values. Are there 50 things that are important to us? Of course there are. But we need to narrow it down to 5 to 7 values that are going to drive our actions and our decisions every step of the way. I mentioned that I'm the author of More Than a Hammer, Leadership Tools for the Trades. And in both parts, part 1 and part 2, I deal with the idea of corporate values, company values. First part, in the first book, we deal with how do we choose them? How do we narrow them down to 5 or 7? The process is very, very crucial. It's not just about having the values. It's about how do we get there. In part 2, what I cover is how do we take those values and disseminate them throughout the entire organization, right from the leadership all the way to the newest hire, so that we're all functioning by the same values. They drive our decisions and they drive our actions. Both of these books hold a number of other tools. There's more than 35 other chapters when you combine the books that give us tools that change the way we lead. Things like how do we communicate effectively? How do we lead productive conflict? How do we set, measure, and hold people accountable to expectations? Those are just some of the other tools you're going to find. Now, I've written these books specifically for those of us who lead in the trades. The chapters are short. We don't always have a lot of time to read. Get home after a 10 to 12 hour shift, or we've been on the job for 10 to 12 hours, we don't always feel like reading. The chapters we can get through in 15 minutes easily. At the end of each chapter, there's 2 questions. These questions are going to take the material from that chapter, the principles, and make them practical to your situation. It's not just theory. And lastly, if you don't feel like reading, or if you want to listen while you're driving, not watch, but listen, you can scan a QR code at the back of each chapter. And what it's going to do is take you to a video where you're going to be able to watch the same material, or just turn the video part off and listen to it. That means you don't have to spend the time reading if you don't have the time. Click on the link below, www.morethan-a-hammerbook.com. And it's going to take you to my website where you're going to be able to pick up your copies, part 1 and part 2 of More Than a Hammer. When you buy them in a combined package, I'll take 40% off because you need both of these. These books will change the way you lead. They will change your results. They're just like any other tool. It's great to have them and it's great to know how they work, but we need to use them and use them consistently. If you do that, you will change the results you and your other leaders generate in your organization, on your crew, in your office, or in your shop. So invest in your business, yourself, and your leaders. Pick up your copies of More Than a Hammer, Leadership Tools for the Trades. I look forward to seeing you inside.